Ugh.
Hello there! What is up, everybody? It is I, the Midnight Chronicler, the one and only. I am so glad to be back with you guys. It's been way too long since I've been in front of a camera talking books with you guys. The first of the brand new year, 2024. So much cool stuff coming, guys. But first off, let's start the year off with a Star Wars book. I'm a huge Star Wars fan myself. And guys, this is actually Heir to the Empire. And just to set a few things straight right off the bat, no, this is not considered to be the quote-unquote real Episode 7 by Disney. This is considered a Star Wars legend story, whatever that means. Who cares? It's all fiction anyways, so this can be your Episode 7 if you want it to be. But if you're a longtime Star Wars fan and were seriously disappointed by the new Disney sequels that we got, and you really wanted more Luke, more Han, more Leia, great news. This book gives you an Elseworld look at what could have been. By the way, readers, we got the best Episode 7, just saying right off the bat.
So no, this is a very different story from Disney's Episode 7. With this, basically we're following up right after the end of Return of the Jedi, which is Episode 6 of the original trilogy back in the 1980s. Obviously, at the end of that movie, the Empire falls, the bad guys are basically defeated, and Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Princess Leia, they're the remnants of the New Republic, and the Empire is basically destroyed at that point. So this book starts off the struggle of, okay, the bad guys are beaten, now what? And that's sort of what this delves into. It is the struggle between the new regime of the good guys versus the shattered remains of the Empire, and who will the rest of the galaxy side with, basically. So it's a power struggle between good and evil. That is sort of what's happening in Heir to the Empire. So, the great about this book. Let's start off with the guy on the cover, Thrawn himself. So how can you follow up an iconic, brutal villain like Darth Vader? Well, you replace the brawn with brains and you get Grand Admiral Thrawn. This dude is always thinking 10 steps ahead of the heroes, and it makes for an interesting chess match. He's ruthless, strategic, he's calculated. Well, how smart is this guy? I'll give you an example. He finds a way to shut off the Force. So yeah, there's that. The also great about this book, Luke, Han, and Leia, all for the most part, act exactly as they should and as you would imagine that they would in an Episode 7, in a hypothetical Episode 7 that takes place after the last movie. A few times I felt like Leia wasn't as much of a ball buster as she usually is, but for the most part, they're the characters that you know and love. Another aspect of this book that is really unsung and needs noted is the new characters that are introduced are surprisingly interesting. Mara Jade is a mysterious green-eyed smuggler assistant who's much more than meets the eyes. Her, along with her master, a guy named Talon Card, who's also, funny enough, an old smuggler friend of Han's, are really welcome additions to the Star Wars cast. And yeah, guys, this is not just a book that follows only Luke, Leia, and Han to the point where there's no one new. There is a lot of new characters, and Timothy Zahn did a really good job of creating Star Wars characters that are new, refreshing, and they fit right into the world. It was really awesome to read. There are also some really beloved and familiar faces in here like Lando Calrissian and even Wedge Antilles, who both play fairly prominent roles. Another really cool thing in Heir to the Empire is it doesn't beat you over the head with familiar locations or, here's a bunch of Star Wars references from other movies just because. But some of the locations that we do revisit I thought were really interesting. Like, we go back to Dagobah for a little bit in the middle-ish of the book. We also, this was the weirdest one, if you guys have ever seen Episode 3, there's a scene where they go to Chewbacca's homeworld, which is called Kashyyyk. That location is in this book. I had no idea, and I did not hear about that prior to reading that. But that was a really interesting surprise, I thought. The locations in here are fun and varied and pretty imaginative, and they really pass for, quote unquote, realistic Star Wars locations. So here is some of the things I really would have liked to seen less of, or some of the things in the book that I really just did not connect with very much. First off, the politics. Now, this probably should be in the "this is bad" category, but here goes. There are a few too many scenes in this book that focus too much on Leia and the New Republic trying to, bring the galaxy together. Their methods for how to do this end up clashing, and pages upon pages are spent talking about this, talking over politics. These sections were not my cup of tea and really slowed down the book for me. Another thing about this book that was sort of meh for me was, and actually this might be the biggest one of all, is this is a very, very solid story, guys. So do not get me wrong, I enjoyed this book very much. But it almost has a, hey, this is what happened on a Tuesday in Star Wars land feel to it, if that kind of makes sense. Outside of Thrawn, it sort of felt like a day in the life of Luke, Han, and Leia to me. I have a strong feeling that will change once I read the next 2 books in the series, technically episodes 8 and 9. I think that will change. This is by no means a serious issue for the book, as so many scenes in it are heartwarming and new and fun, but the epicness, just that really awe-inspiring, feeling that you got from the original trilogy, is just kind of missing in Heir to the Empire. So my favorite scene was actually near the very beginning when Thrawn and one of his captains go to recruit somebody, let's say. Someone that will play a major role in the upcoming books. The scene just illustrates how dangerous Thrawn really is, and how feeble things like the Force and Jedi are when they're faced by his intellect. It was such a cool moment, and it was different for Star Wars. It wasn't like, ooh, magic, the Force, all that stuff. It was like, okay, here's a guy that his weapon is how smart he is, and when faced to the Force, that intellect can kind of overcome anything. And that's a real cool wrinkle to the Star Wars universe that I think was so cool and so unique to this, and something that honestly maybe the new trilogy that we got needed something like that. Overall though, guys, this book is a solid 7.5. We'll go with a 7.5 for me. If you want a Star Wars book that feels like the further adventures of the characters that you know and love, well, you're going to really enjoy this book. If you want that and way, way more, you might be a little disappointed.
For me though, guys, this is a much more palatable episode 7 than the movie that we got from Disney. And for that, this book really has my thanks. And you guys have my thanks as well. You guys are the best audience I could have ever asked for. Like, subscribe, tell your friends. There's so many more books to discuss, guys, in the coming months. Cannot wait to talk about it with you guys.